It was quick.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining our first historical webinars of 2022. 50 Years in a Hunting Club on Tug Hill continues a series of historical webinars that the Tug Hill Commission started hosting in 2020. Many of you have joined us for Letters from a Tug Hill Logger, the Constable Chronicles, and more over the past 2 years. We don't think you'll be disappointed today when Jack Thoden shares photos and stories of his over 50 years in the Brandy Brook Sports Club. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Commission's YouTube channel later today, along with all of our other past offerings. My name is Katie Malinowski, and I am the Executive Director of the Tug Hill Commission. For those who may not know, the Tug Hill region covers 2,100 square miles in portions of Jefferson, Lewis, Oneida, and Oswego counties. We are a small, non-regulatory New York State agency that provides assistance to the towns and villages of Tug Hill in the areas of land use planning, local governance, community and economic development, and natural resources. And we probably should say history now. A few housekeeping items. For this webinar, you are muted and your video is turned off to conserve bandwidth. Please enter your questions in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we will answer them either during the presentation or at the end. Brandy Brook was established in 1965 when it leased 3,600 acres of land from Lyons Falls Pulp and Paper in the now defunct hamlet of Page. Jack joined Brandy Brook in 1972 and has been a member since, serving as president, treasurer, food committee chairman, etc. He also served as the president of the gate committee for several years, which helped manage access to the G&W Railroad for the local camps and landowners, and eventually became the Tug Hill Sporting Association. Brandy Brook is a great example of the tradition of hunting clubs all over Tug Hill. Jack Thoden grew up in Allegany County, New York, where his love of the outdoors began. He graduated from the Forestry College in Syracuse, SUNY ESF, and then served in the Navy. He worked for the National Lumber Manufacturers Association out of Washington, D.C., traveling New York State before moving to Boonville in 1962 to work for H.R. Myers Lumber Company, Inc. He worked there for 42 years until his retirement in 2004. Both Jack and his wife Ruth were heavily involved in the Woodsmen's field days for over 25 years. Jack and Ruth incorporated the field days originally, and Jack served as the first president. He was also on the contest committee until 1989 when they both retired. He also served his community in other ways, including serving on the reorganization committee of the Adirondack Central School, building committee chairman for Adirondack Health, and former president of the Boonville Area Chamber of Commerce. So we are going to start the webinar. I'm just going to take you to the next slide. This is a quick map just to orient to you where we're talking about. So Brandy Brook Sports Club is this, the camp is right about where this yellow triangle is. We're in the town of West Turin. This green line is the G&W Railroad, and just some Martinsburg's here, Montague's here, Osceola. So you're really up on the core of Tug Hill. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack.
We should really mention the fact that Brandy Brook now is north of the G&W, as it turns out now. We've let the land in the southern part go. There's no need, and ownership, et cetera, it's all been changed over the years. This is a picture of, let's see, that goes back to 66 when they got started. 66, 67 is when the camp itself was built. And we got I think it's a pile of stone there on the right side. And one of the fellows brought it up again. He said, boy, I was 10 years old and I handled every one of those. They were collecting stone to build the chimney that's in the later pictures we'll get to.
That was Doug Freeman, right? Yep.
Yeah, pretty much all I can get on that one. There, our Tug Hill TV, and what we really go there for many times now, especially, the older you get, the more you like to sit right where he's sitting. Only now is a couch right there. With actually 3 chairs. It changes, as all camp owners know, depending on what been donated for furniture. Next. Yeah, here we are. We're showing it without the dormers. And let me see
It's your
here.
daughter.
It's my daughter on the stoop out in front. That was in 63. We made a trip up there, my old snow jet. And as you can see, there's no dormers yet. And it was one of those perfect days where we had like a 2 or 3 inch crust. You go anywhere as if it was in the summertime. And a little crazy. We are 9 miles back from the gate, and no, 4 miles back from the gate, 9 miles back from Route 26. And let's see, what was I going to say here? We were probably crazy back then. Their old snow jet to get us there, but that crust made it nice. And there's a view that my son always says, haven't you taken that picture enough? It's looking out on a page pond. That pond, you know, there's a story here. I don't think I even mentioned to Kate that the pond itself was not there when they started the camp in 65. And about after the camp was built, 67 or 8, we rebuilt the dam. I say we because I wasn't there until 73. But knowing all this, when all of a sudden we get a letter a couple years ago, 2, 3 years ago, it said, we're too close to the pond, you're gonna have to remove the camp. Well, the fires went out at that point. They got the flares and you name it. We didn't know what to do. And I happen to remember that when you build a dam, you've got to have a permit. And the permit has to be promulgated on newspapers. Well, Boonville has the Boonville Herald, and it's the closest newspaper. So just on a wild hunch, I went in there one afternoon, and I'll be done after I explained things what we needed, because it has to be published. That would have the number on it and everything else. Sure enough, gal called me the next morning. I said, you got to be kidding. You found something? And she did. She said, I didn't even have to go down in the cellar. I said, you're a doll. Couldn't help but praise her somewhat in that ad in the paper gave us the permit number, the guy that issued it out of District 6 up in Watertown, the permit number, and the date naturally, which was around 68 or 69, something like that, which made it after the camp was built. So we made arrangements to get that down to the commissioner, and sure enough, commissioner said he handled that to his legal beagle and said, I don't want that camp. He says, make sure nothing happens to that camp. I said, oh boy, that wasn't me either. I had a representative that took it ever down there. He worked for DEC unpaid, but was in and out of their office, and he was in their office that day, which I did a lot of celebrating that night. And it's original, I say original. What year is this one, Kate?
1977.
77, okay, that's a few years later, but it gives you an idea of the number of hunters we used to get. And I can remember being in camp one night and sleeping in my Suburban because we had something like 26, and it's hardly that number of cots that anybody could sleep in. 26 hunters in one opening weekend that was back a few years ago, for sure. Oh, the picture of my old snow jet, my son, and a fellow by the name of Jim Shea. He was the handled all the people at Georgia Pacific as they came in, documenting them and everything. That was his job. But the three of us were in there, and that's the old original
High Market Inn.
High Market Inn, yeah, before he built what's there now. But there was a bar in there in the living room, and they say that his daughter runs around there in a barefoot and in the evening. I never saw that part of it. I don't know if he went in that day, but she runs around barefoot as a waitress. Something else on Tug Hill. No, I had a fellow that lived in Boonville, as I did, and he flew his own Piper. And we're up one day, and he said, "Where's your camp?" And I told him we followed the railroad back in and showed him. And he says, "Let's go down." Holy mackerel! I didn't know whether it was big enough to get down and back up or not, but there he is. We set the plane down there, and that's me in the tail there. And he came down in right towards this from the north, which we're looking towards the north, right there. I took that picture right by, or he took the picture actually, right by the camp, a bank in front, and came in from the north. I thought he was gonna snap skis off. Made a turn, and that was it. When we went out, we had no trouble at all because it was prevailing about a 20-25 mile an hour breeze, and it lifted right up where we had to get up over some trees. Hell, we were 50 feet above those trees. We were in good shape. Yeah, hi Jim. He's I think doing some steaks. We had a grill that we put over the steaks, and can't beat it. We had I don't know, I guess this is a place we talk about the
Bill's Market.
Bill's Market, yeah. He was a fellow in Port Leyden that ran his own meat shop. And at the time I happened to be one of the people that get out and get them, the food committee. And we had steaks quite often. And I went in there almost every weekend, naturally, for whenever they were hunting, which come fall, that was it. So we got the meat there all the time. And he used to make his own donuts, and they were pretty good size, about like a bagel today. And every time I went in there to get the meat, he'd say, "How many you got coming in there today?" And he'd make sure that we had enough for the weekend. And he always gave it to us. He must have been getting pretty good on the meat. But I can remember one fellow, one of our hunters, he cut one in half for breakfast and slather peanut butter on it, and make the comment that, "Hey, that'll hold me till noon." And there we are at the gate. Yeah, Georgia Pacific. Or no, that was back then. That was before Georgia Pacific. This goes back to what am I thinking of? Lyons Falls Pulp and Paper. No, that was after Georgia Pacific.
Yeah, no, sure.
Before Georgia Pacific, it was well, maybe it'll come to me later. Anyway, that was the old G&W Railroad entrance to the state land out east of the Whetstone Reservoir now. That was formed. But they had to put up a gate because with our advent of newer four-wheelers, and not four-wheelers, four-wheel drive Jeeps and trucks and everything, there was always a crew in there that liked to get in first of the spring, and they go in there and see what they could do with the mud. Well, we couldn't have that, or they couldn't have that. Lansford, no, not Lansford. What did they just say?
Georgia Pacific?
No, before.
No, I don't know. You couldn't remember.
Anyhow, such is a brain. And but anyway, they had to put up the gate. And rumor has it that the first time it went up, naturally the locals didn't like it and it got dynamited. I wasn't there then, naturally.
Splitting wood.
Oh, well, just work weekend. One of our original older, it's a tractor with a splitter on the back end. And that we had work weekends, one in the spring, one in the fall. That's always been true. It's in the bylaws, day one. And that's how it started. Now, quite a bit different. In fact, that was the first woodshed right there. And they're going to kick out the fellow sitting there in the corner is Paul Proul, Proulx. Proul. Anyway, Paul was one of the original shortly thereafter. And he he was actually the fellow that did most of the laying up of the chimney that you'll see in future photographs. And he was quite a guy. In fact, he and I built one of our 4 dormers together. I helped him early. He was the carpenter and mason, and he was up there every other weekend trapping and laid a lot of stone in the meantime, all by himself. How things got done in the old days. What are we here?
Another work weekend in the woodshed.
Oh, yeah, that was a newer woodshed that we replaced the one Paul. Paul is funnily just pushing over with a few of the workers that day. And just a scene of the G&W looking down through there. Quite scenic come fall, pretty colors, you name it.
Wrong way.
Oh, went the wrong
There
way.
we go.
There we are. Just a flock of geese going off. And that we used to get quite a bit of quite a few of the fellows that like to duck and geese hunt. And we had blinds on Page Pond that we put on every spring and, well, every fall weekend usually was one of our concentrations. One crew would get our blinds drawn up. And that's, what do we got? 2 pictures here,
Got
don't
your
we?
Tug Hill traffic jam here, the log truck.
No, both of those are, aren't they? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. Yeah, one Sunday afternoon, everybody went to get home and pulled out of our driveway, and there we sat. And then the log truck had gone off and had the G&W Railroad blocked. And I think it took, we were probably there for an hour and a half, couple hours waiting everybody on that line to go out. And you look at the end of a 2 mile, it was longer than that by the time I got it cleaned up. It was down by George Getman's camp. You went into the ditch on a slope and got broadside, and that was it. You was no way moving him without getting another log truck or a dozer. I forget now how they did it. But that was a story to tell by everybody who was in that line. Here we are coming in with what's we hauling the trailer?
This is for the
there?
root cellar. The-
Oh, getting ready for the root cellar. You're bringing dozer in, or the yeah.
And your unloading dock, the way you use the
Yeah,
bank.
not dozer, the
backhoe.
backhoe. There we go. Yeah, our loading dock was always the nearest blunt bank you could back into that was level enough to get off what you had to get off. And there it is. It's well, that's actually the camp next door. And you ran up the road to get started on our root cellar. That was an interesting situation in the root cellar. There were 2 of our fellows worked at a dairy, and they had an old ice cream box off a truck sitting out back for a couple of years. What are they gonna do with it? Now, ended up, they asked, we got it, they gave it to us. And then all I had to do is get the trailer that we had there at the lumberyard where I worked, and got it over there, got it loaded up and took it up, and we dug a hole and put it in, and we had unfrozen things in the middle of the winter that kind of hard to get in any camp without building something like that, but this was something else, and envy of quite a few of the camps, naturally.
That was Mercer's, right? That gave it
Yeah,
to you?
Mercer's Dairy was the one. They've changed hands now, but back then there was 2 of our guys were workers. One was a Mercer and the other was their ice cream peddler. He's our beaver trapper. We'll see later on. Yeah, speaking of
Got fish in here.
fishing, here we are. My father-in-law and a couple other fellas. And what we used to get out of Fish Creek. Kind of hard to do now that we've got, let's see, I think it's better than 20 different dams in the 1 mile. It's a little over a mile of Fish Creek that we are part of our border. And, you know, with beaver dams, that many of them, the water gets warm, you don't get the trout reproduction that we should get naturally. Not only there, but Alder Creek, same way. And that's about a mile. And we got, I think there's over 10 dams in that 1 mile. And ponds, pretty good size, and boy, they get warm. And brook trout don't like it that warm, let's face it. But nothing we can do, and Well, when Nation Conservancy took over the land that we lease, they outlawed trapping and lost a good trapper that used to take anywhere from 50 to 70 beaver off our land every year. And it's kind of hard to believe, but I was with him and number of trips on a snowmobile.
Sorry to interrupt, Katie. There's a couple of questions in the chat that I wanted to draw your attention to.
Go ahead and read them off.
Okay, so Brenda wants to know why was the DEC track hole being used?
Get that.
DEC track hoe,
No,
Or
backhoe
backhoe?
that we used, put the root cellar in.
Mhm.
Backhoe.
I think so. Yep.
Yeah, it does have DEC symbol on the side of it. I hadn't
Oh,
noticed
the
that
fella
before.
that bought a used one from DEC. No, that was not had anything to do with DC at that point.
Leave it to Brendan to see that.
Yeah, he's looking for the emblem. I know, okay. No, it was a used one that we, in fact, one of the fellas, the Mercer, owned it and he brought it up. Well, I brought it up, but the other question?
Yeah, Kate wants to know who the first person in that picture was. And she thinks it's Herb Jordan and Jim Moon, but there's someone else.
Oh, and the fish.
Yeah.
Ron Bellinger, probably. From Boonville. He was an iron worker. Good welder. In fact, he repaired the firebox in the fireplace one time.
Okay.
And he wasn't even a member, but he always, Jim and Ron and I, the three of us, went up many times in the wintertime trapping. Good friend.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Jen. Oh, we're
Yeah, we're
fixing the bottom log and the duck blind and the buck. There's your duck blind and. your
okay.
buck.
Yeah. Just duck blind that we're repairing and work weekend, getting the logs in and everything. And the buck was one of the first, in fact, one of the only deer that I ever saw brought on a drive. We put in about a 1 mile drive. We had about 15 guys and we all, one of those nice bluebird days. And we tried it and doggone if we didn't have one come out of it. Nice buck. In fact, there was another fellow about ready to pull the trigger and this guy dropped it. That's the same guy that was in the fireplace cooking a steak a little while ago. Good man. It was an orange colored rack. He had it mounted. It was pretty. Anyway, where's our dormers?
Yep, it's got a
Yeah.
beaver meadow with some dead timber there at the top.
Yeah, well, it shows you what happens after a meadow goes after the beaver dam goes in, the timber naturally dies.
Yep, you got your dormers going on
Yep,
and it looks like.
They're there.
yeah.
They're there for sure. What year is that?
I can't see.
Did we get it on
It's
there?
81.
81.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a long time after they went on because they're about 10 years now. They'd been on.
And then you got snowmobilers at the bottom heading to the High Market Inn from camp.
That's it. They're over on the High Market Road at that point. They come through the woods. It's just about 4 miles from our camp to High Market.
There's a question from Tom Voss. He wants to know what was the foundation of the camp?
It's on block corners.
Saying
And
the
we surrounded the bottom and keep the wind out of there with, I think it was just texture 111 on a frame off the ground naturally.
Mhm.
But the floors were cold. Typical.
replacing the bottom log must have been a chore.
Yes, it was. That's why there was a number of guys there. Well, you cut it out and put it in pieces. It wasn't all gone, but well, that corner I've seen that corner replaced 3 times because
Interesting.
it was that particular part of the camp, the upper part away from the pond happened to be almost level with the parking lot. So it caught a lot of the water, wasn't any place for it to go, and it rested against that log, and that log got wet and rotted naturally.
Right.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
sure. Where are we now? We
So
got
now you got teaching the next generation of hunters and a hunting weekend. Some brookies.
another track. You notice that string isn't quite as big as the one that was on that canoe. This is a more recent, what's the year on this one?
83 on the bottom and
Yeah.
yeah. And then some
10 years later.
Yep, repairs to the
But then,
tower.
then we were still trapping. So, well, it was only 3 guys and they had kids with them and
So
they could have caught more and less. I don't know. That's just one picture I happened to get.
So did you have a lot of fathers bringing their sons up and teaching them over the years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where my son learned all his stuff. He
Very
started coming in there when I got a picture and I should have put one of them in here. We were showing him bringing the wood inside from the woodshed, which naturally has to get done. Everybody does that. And the more you got, the better it is. It's nice when you get 10 or 12 guys and you can form a chain, just hand it in. Otherwise you got 2 or 3 people, you carry it in.
nice.
And it's logs that we handle for the fireplace. They were up to 4 feet long in that we could burn 4-foot pulp. And let's see, probably, I've seen it up to 10-inch in diameter. That's a 2-man log for me. But we had guys that would pick up one of those big 10-inchers and throw it in. Usually do that just before you go to bed. That's an all-nighter.
All right.
You're just repairing the front chimney. Not chimney, that one dormer. Some reason that one dormer is on the southeast corner and must be a lot of snow, wet snow collects in that corner because it's been repaired 2 or 3 times. I don't think it'll have to be done it again, but who knows?
All right. So the next one. So this is more of snowmobiling.
Well, it's just more or less a idea. I've got there's a picture where I think we put in, I don't know if we got it in there yet or not, or put it on. I've got 5 albums of snowmobiling and everything else up at camp. Brandy Brook albums that I've taken over the years. You can see the difference in the cameras and everything else. And what am I looking at here?
That's the groomer on Flat Rock Road there. And
Oh, just snowmobile. That's all I was mentioning, is that the evolution, shall we say, of the snowmobile, naturally you can pick up from these pictures. It's amazing. I had a guy mention it to me. I never even thought of it, but it's true. They get a kick out of these albums. And let's see, what do we get here?
it's like you had a tree fall down on one of the.
Oh, the fellow
outbuildings.
down the lower left-hand corner there, he got
Oh,
a
yeah.
little sheepish grin on his face and then, oh, I never had any trouble dropping a tree. And about the time he was ready to drop it, a gust of wind came up and laid it right on top of the woodshed. I think that's the picture. It's,
Yes, it is.
down the lower right-hand corner there.
And there you on the upper right, you've got your line of guys working to fill your
Yeah, working the
chain
weekend.
gang. Yep.
Working the weekend. Oh, bringing in the wood,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Filling up the woodshed, I think.
Oh, okay, it could be either.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
We're chain ganging up because it could be where at this point, well, we could get into, originally we were able when not Lions Fall,
We can't remember it.
the original company that owned the land. Anyway, they used to naturally, when they were logging it, they had landings and they had a lot of wood left on landings, and we could take in to keep the roads all open. We were allowed to pick up all the wood and bring it to camp. So we were able to get all our firewood off the land that we leased, which was great. No cost, just volunteers and their vehicles. We used to have a lot of pickups to be able to get all that done. That went on for probably 20 years. And no problem at all. That's half the reason why we actually had a work weekend. But we'd get anywhere 15, 20 people usually in there for a work weekend. And it got it all done with those 2 work weekends we had every year. Still do. They tried getting by with them for a few years and run out of things that should have got done that didn't, and maybe next time. But they were only having one in the fall. Black flies was keeping them off the hill in May. And you put on the bug dope and get out there and get it done.
So here you are digging a
Big-
water line. and
Oh,
putting up
yeah,
a new
that's the
deer
fellow
hole.
putting the water line in from the pond up to the camp. And we used to run a pump. We put it upstairs into a 55-gallon drum that we had upstairs. It gave us water in the camp for cooking and everything, because it took it right off the pond, carried in drinking water naturally. And then they were putting up a new deer pole. There's Jim Moon doing a trapping, a nice beaver. He was a good man. And sharpening a saw, they got the back of that saw truck maybe. I can't tell what's on the bottom. I can't quite see.
More winter weekends and more
Yeah.
firewood.
You talked enough about that.
You talked about the dams already, so we won't talk about that there. This is the causeway.
Oh, that was the time that I was lucky enough to be coming in, and the guy and the young bride and the kid were all there on fishing on the dike on the Whetstone Weather Reservoir. And I just happened to get there, and he's, hey, I got one. And he had one on there. Turned out to be a Norlunge.
Oh, yeah, we're
Well,
not quite to that one yet.
isn't that it?
Yeah, no, that's not it yet.
What's this one?
This is you parked on the bridge, the new.
Oh,
bridge.
that's not the Whetstone, that's Fish Creek.
Yep,
When they rebuilt the bridge and get
in
on,
84.
I took a ride up around the railroad all the way out to the end and around and coming in. It's actually the High Market Road extended, goes all the way around. You make the whole loop. Another guy and I were just doing that, but we couldn't finish in that they never, the bridge had gone out, and I was told that it was back in. The bridge was back in, but the approach wasn't. So I drove up on there and it looked like I can't go off the other end. They hadn't finished the approach yet. So I had to back off the bridge and go back away the way we came. And we didn't get to the High Market Inn that day. That was something else.
Do you want to talk about the weed eater fiasco?
Oh, I don't know if you can see it or not in that picture, but right behind him, he's turned around, just seeing. I happened to be taking a picture of the guys out there at the time, and I caught him looking back. That was my partner in the lumberyard. He hit it with the weed eater that he was using. He turned around. Yeah, he sure did. He cut a gas line going into the camp.
Oh.
Another job for that work weekend.
Jack, if I can interrupt you, Brendan wants to know, with the previous company that the previous landowners, were they Gould, GP, or Continental Can?
The landowners themselves, let's see, we changed. Our land has always been a paper company until the Nature Conservancy came in, and I think it was 04, 02, 04, 2002, 2004, something like that. And they now have a conservation easement with DEC. So chances are it's not going to get sold and built into camps or anything else. And we should be, hopefully, I don't know how long I'll see it yet, being 86, but hopefully we'll be there for a while now, especially since we ironed out our permit business.
Did any of those names ring a bell that she read off for the previous landowner way back when? Gould, or what were the
Gould
other?
Paper Company, that was the
Gould,
first one.
Gould.
Very
There you go.
good.
Thanks,
It had
Brendan.
to come to us. Gould Paper Company, and then let's see. Georgia Pacific bought it from Gould,
And Lyons.
and then Georgia Pacific, they formed Lyons Falls Pulp and Paper, and they owned it when pardon me, when the Nature Conservancy bought it.
Yep.
They've been the 4 owners right through. And of course, lease price per acre went up a little bit through the years.
You want to talk about the sign for Page that you guys put up?
Well, that was well, Ron Bellinger, which we mentioned, he fixed the fireplace, welded that one time, and his son was so taken with Brandy Brook. And he made a sign that said Page, population 25. That was us at the time. And it was good for about 3 years. And one of the log trucks came in, we were a little too high for it. And we never did find it. It hit, and that thing must have got a mile. We never did find it. That poor guy, we lost him in a snowmobile accident. He was racing up Messina and made a victory lap, was going slower the next time around, came right down into a mogul, put a handlebar right in his stomach, and he was dead within minutes. I don't know, his liver or what it was. I happened to be up Messina at the time, or Plattsburgh, pardon me.
Jeez.
After I retired, I went up there for a year. I worked for a guy.
How about the camp with all the snow on it? You didn't have to shovel the roofs off most winters?
Most winters we didn't have to, but we don't know. Somebody been in a snowmobile and could dump some off. We don't know, but normally we didn't have to. There were times when we had the 4 and 5 feet of snow on Tug Hill, and you get up on that roof and save it.
Mhm.
Especially the dormers, because they were flat, just about. They just sloped just a little. We now have on the dormers, we have the rubber roof. We put that on, and 2012 this was. Yeah, it's a while ago, 10 years already. And, yeah, we replaced the chimney too, or the shingles.
You got Lionel here?
Now down the High Market Inn, as I mentioned before, that was the original small house really that he started with, but then this Lionel came in. I can't think of his whole name and everything else, but he built the new High Market Inn, and he got interested in the deer because at the time, with all the snow that we were getting, that's again before you had all the snowmobile trails and everything, the deer could travel and get to new feedlots and things like that they have today that they didn't have then. But that one High Market Inn right there was sort of one of the biggest yards. There was another out west, another one up north, Sears Pond area. And one down here in Lionel got interested in, he got interested in feeding them. He would go out and with those 2 white buckets, he'd pound those buckets, and within seconds practically, there were deer all over. You can see the picture there with maybe 20 or 30 of them. It'd be nothing to see 100 deer right there in no time at all coming out of that High Market Inn, which was in behind High Market. But once he started feeding them, they, I think, wintered a little closer. But until he got going, and even afterwards, one year that they got so much snow, and again, without the trails and everything for deer to get to different feed plots, they lost, I think it was 212 deer to winter kill. And nobody needed that. So that's one thing the snowmobiles have done, giving the deer some help, because we weren't allowed to feed them. And there we are. Jim's got a beaver, I think.
Yep.
And then what are we doing
We
here?
got a snowmobile crew in 87, and then you've got some charter members still helping out in the kitchen.
2 guys here. I just happened to catch they're 2 of the original charter members. It was only, I think, 7 of them. They took on quite a hefty bill for 3,600 acres we had at the time. And we dropped 600. And when the Conservancy came in, we dropped below the railroad when that was sold to industrial
Yeah, Malthus.
Malthus. And we just kept the northern part, which turned into something that, and well, shortly thereafter, the Nature Conservancy changed the border, and our Fish Creek became our border, which dropped, I think it was about 300-400 acres that we I really loved to hunt, but didn't make any difference because they opened it up public hunting, but it wasn't ours, so to speak.
Mhm.
And
You see much public up there
that was-
hunting?
I only ran into them twice.
Yeah.
Once they came in from the north, they had no idea where they're from. I don't know, it might have been in Utica. But what the heck? We got two guys down here hunting and they're with radios. I could hear them. So I tracked down one of them and he got hold of the other guy and we got him off. I told him to get down, how to get out of there because going back would have been longer. Put him down on the G&W and head east and then get down to and head north.
Mhm.
They had compasses and everything, but had no idea where they were from.
Yeah. Pretty wild area out there.
And that's pretty much it.
There's,
on that.
there's the outhouse.
Oh, yeah. The outhouse. After I joined, I used to sell a product called that gave them the bacteria for an outhouse. They had aerobic and anaerobic, and the anaerobic does not get killed by oxygen. Aerobic does. And I don't think that's the right word. But anyway, the two different kinds of bacteria is not even made anymore. Campbell, they went out. And while I was in, I think we only cleaned it out. And that was basically the hard residue, shall we say, after it's rotted. It saved a lot of work using the bacteria. That's one of the two times that I ever witnessed it. No, all the time I've been in there.
That's not bad.
New. Once we got using the right thing, they were throwing lime on it. Lime just kills it and holds it for the odor is all.
Doesn't really help it break down.
New.
Here we've got somebody.
Oh, then I started talking about this out there. Oh, our charter member and his toy coming up over the bank there off by the chimney up at camp. He was having a good time that day. I don't know how many drinks he had. Probably
This
a
is your
few.
Lunch though.
Yeah. What's this up here?
Oh, that's a new causeway bridge in '89.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's just across the dam. And this Norlange, I just happened to come in at the right time. And this guy with his family there, I mentioned earlier, he had just hooked on a pretty good fish. And I could see his, I had to get out and I had my camera naturally. And there I was. And if you can see the one picture, it's got like a stick. It looks like a stick in the middle of it, right in the middle of the picture. And that is the Norlange jumping. I didn't even know they jumped like a northern. But the next picture is the Norlange right there next to the shore, next to the G&W we were standing on. This guy was bass fishing. He only had about a 3-inch bass lure, but that Norlange hit it. And there he is. And he couldn't keep him. Couldn't keep. They had to be 30 inches. And this guy was only 29 and a half. 3.5, 3/4. It was just under 30. He had to throw it back. He was almost crying after battling it quite a while. You can imagine.
What a shot. So here we have some more snow and your studs.
Yeah, I got a couple of my studs on there. I had to get them into this book. And then what's this up in here?
We got stranded at camp, almost stranded at camp in November of '89 with some early snow.
Well, a number of times that's happened.
Yeah.
In fact, just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Rick Myers and I were in there. And for the hunting weekend, we were the only ones there, just the two of us. Overnight, we'd had about 8-10 inches of snow. And well, we figured we'd go hunting. It was still snowing. We come back from hunting. It was over 18 inches on the woodshed. We decided we better get the hell out of there. Before that snow was over, there was over 36 inches. We were pushing snow with a truck on the way out.
Oh, well,
Another nice batch of bookies.
and then here's a shot at the Montague Inn of the
Oh,
record.
the time that they thought they broke the record, but they didn't. And they broke the record, but it wasn't, they didn't allow it.
The
for
measurement,
some
something
crazy,
technical.
yeah, it was a technical Probably some of you guys can fill me in on that, but we made it up there that weekend and got over there to see it.
Well, I'm impressed you made it over that far to get the
Well,
picture.
snowmobiling,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No, that wasn't fishing. That was just for the
Just for
snow.
snowmobile,
Yeah, fishing was during the summer naturally. What we used to get at times. Maybe 3 or 4 of us go in. Oh, my chocolate bar, that was something else. I had a aluminum canoe. Well, that was mine though. This was another one. The guy had left his canoe at Brandy Brook. And so these 2 guys are up there for summer weekend. Day trip, could have been for all I know. And they borrowed the canoe and headed north on Fish Creek. Got over what we call Goose Pond, which is just a great big beaver pond. They got, for some crazy reason, they went north and kept going over beaver dams, about 4 or 5 of them, up through the woods, next to Alder Creeks or Alder Beds and all that. They got up in there and they left the canoe in an alder bed. And that one of them started having trouble, had sugar, and he started having trouble. They went in, hit a log road and walked out and left the canoe. Well, the owner of the canoe wanted to use it one time. So we happened to be up there, a gang of us, and I got to volunteer. I went up on their trail. You could follow them along the edge with it. So I knew they kept going. Sure enough, I walked right to it up in that alder bed and I got the canoe and I headed up into the woods where they did. And I'm waiting for the rest of them. They were going to come up the log road that the rest of them had gone up on and back trailing where they came out. So anyway, they must have been having a good time because I never did. I shouted and everything else, but they're playing around in the mud and everything. They're shouting louder than I was because they never heard me. Anyway, they turn around. I hear them go back down. And I put the canoe up on the shoulders and away I went down the track behind them. Got down there, got to Fish Creek about the same time that the owner's son wanted to use it. Happened to come that far and saved him a lot of walking. But the guys that had left it there, one fella, this was all a surprise to me. All of a sudden I get a UPS package and that chocolate bar in my hand is one of those commercial chocolate bars. Now I'm telling you, it took me a while to get that down. That was something I didn't expect anything like that. He was happy, man, that we got his canoe back for him.
That's
Jim Moonigan. Yeah, he's digging out the snow to get to the water pump. We had about, I bet there was 5-6 feet of snow right there at the edge where it drifted in and everything. We got rain, or we got water up at camp. Like 3 or 4 of us at the time.
All right, we're almost done. This is our third to last slide.
Replacing that.
Yep, that corner again.
Yeah, well, that got replaced 3 or 4 times over the years.
Got an empty woodshed.
Yeah, it shows it being empty before
Yeah.
we started work weekend.
And some chicken
And-
barbecue. It's your chicken barbecue work weekend.
Oh, that's a regular chicken barbecue. though.
Yeah.
We had the other one there. that-
Oh, yeah, that's coming. Here, we'll go to
Oh,
the next
okay.
slide.
Yeah, other than that, there's our new roof in 2012, I believe.
Yep. And
Yeah,
the turkey work weekend,
where's that?
right here, turkey.
Oh, yeah. The fella had done turkeys in his barrel. I don't know if anybody ever seen that done. None of us had. This guy tried it. And he always had good luck with one, but he tried 2. I don't know if turkeys or chicken. I can't remember. I think they were turkeys. So anyway, there's a barrel that goes over that and they cook in there and you just get your bed of coals, a good bed of coals, and with the barrel over it with tin and holds the heat and it cooks. Well, it was okay for 1, but he says it didn't handle 2. You can't hold enough coals underneath. We even took a few out, put some under and tried it and didn't work. We finished them off in the oven. Didn't work. We were all dying to try it.
Got your flooded causeway here.
Oh, don't get me going on that. It's something else in that when they built the causeway, I can't help but wonder, and I've seen it enough, the flood stage of the dam at the Whetstone Weather Reservoir okay, what's the elevation of that versus elevation of that causeway? Because every spring that causeway floods. And sometimes in the winter, if we get a snow and a thaw with a lot of rain, we had one night at midnight that we had a heck of a time getting in, and one guy was having trouble. And then he had a heart trouble. This isn't long, about midnight. We're trying to get to camp for the weekend. Well, we got there with only 2 snowmobiles. We started out with 4 because they got buried in there in the slush on the way in. We got them out the next day. But it just makes me wonder, because I've seen, there's another picture in here too, where we're on the way out with 4-wheelers and the causeway is flooded. I've never been able to get an answer to that.
Now we just have the map of the camp back from '04 showing the whole layout.
Yeah, at one time, this used to be our layout, and that was the whole 3,600 acres. And I put it in there to have it. But the current lease is 2,800 acres that we still have north of the railroad. That includes Page Pond. So we can go from an old, what's the name of the road? An old truck used to be there.
I can't read it.
It's over here.
Yeah, I can't read
Here,
it.
this is the eastern line of the,
Yeah.
it used to be we were for
East Road?
no,
Brendan said it's an international road?
yeah, international. That's right.
on the
It was
west
an
side.
international truck where the road got its name. And we go to the international road. We picked up a little land from the western border that it used to be to the international road when the Nature Conservancy bought all that. And they also had 7,000 acres of it that they turned into public hunting, which surrounded us. So we didn't need the acres anymore. We had all kinds of land if you wanted to go there. But frankly, over the years, with the advent of snowmobiles and everything, our camp now is probably, I'd say, 80 to 90% snowmobilers and 4-wheelers for recreational. And we don't have more than maybe a half a dozen of us that still deer hunt. And my days are getting numbered. I got an eye problem.
And then the last picture is your stack of photo albums.
Yeah, I started taking pictures with that one picture with no dormers and an old brownie, I think that was. And over the years, I just kept taking pictures for my memory book. And now I really enjoy going through them again.
Mhm.
You'd be surprised how much the guys enjoy them when I bring them up. They fill a milk carton and they're getting heavy. But there they are.
And that's the end of the slideshow.
Well, we'll take questions.
Yeah, we can take some questions.
Right, and if you want to be unmuted, use the raise your hand function or send a chat and we'll let you speak. It's a small enough group.
No question?
No, we got one. I just gotta find it.
Okay.
George, you're unmuted. You can unmute if you'd like.
Hey, Jack, wonderful presentation. This is George Nelson calling from St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm a recent member of the camp. I've been a member for about a year now. I was up in the spring doing some 4-wheeling, and I was recently there in February for 2 weeks in the middle of the month. Did some snowmobiling, had a wonderful, wonderful time. And my big question is, I'm a big fisherman. How far is Fish Creek from the camp? Is it walking distance?
Mile. Oh, yeah. But it's easier to go up International Road right to it.
Okay. Yeah, I love to hunt those native brook. I love to do the native brook trout. Originally from Homer, New York, and we had a camp up in the Adirondacks around Louisville, and I used to do a lot of native brook trout fishing. I just really enjoy it. So great pictures, wonderful, wonderful memories. Thank you.
Thank you. South is also where Alder Creek is down through. Get down
Okay.
south, you get into some beaver dams down in there. I've never gone. We did have a fellow once that walked from here down to High Market. And a fellow from Boonville sort of rescued him. And he came back to camp, got in his truck. We haven't seen him since.
Oh, no.
But there's some nice beaver dams down in there that you can try too.
Well, certainly give that a shot. A wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Yep, thanks.
I don't get to meet half the people snowmobiling.
Will, do you want to speak? Will, you're unmuted. Can't hear you. So,
Will,
Brendan, did
Will
you-
was asking, let me see, let me find it. Brian Mumford mentioned the post office. Where was the post office?
is that on G&W Road? And Page?
The only post office I know of was at Page back. That would have been who, 18, well, the railroad went in about 1880 or 98 through, they went under in 25, 1925, 29, something like that. And the post office was, there was only one,
That must
and
be
that
it.
was it at Page. That's the only one I ran into in my readings.
Brendan is agreeing with you that he thinks it was on G&W at Page.
Mhm.
Brendan
that
has a
was-
question too.
There was something like 28 buildings there at Page at one time. That was about it. The hotel, school, church, and houses. You can still see some of the foundations, not many.
Brendan, you want to ask a question?
Sure. Can you hear me okay, Jack?
Yeah, fine.
I was wondering, it was related to me either by, well, I guess it doesn't matter. It was either by Bernard Davies or my cousin or my uncle. But the railroad siding that went off towards the pond where the sawmill was in Page. And I was told that that siding was intentionally sloped or tilted toward the pond so they could release just one side of the cars and the logs would roll off into the pond. Had you ever heard that story before?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
As far as the specifics, I've only heard, I have a letter that lists 2 deaths that occurred in the mill itself, maintenance. One guy got crushed up again, oiling it in the morning, and the other one, something else, but the great big belts that ran the blades and everything, the machinery. And it was very interesting. It was when a girl, I would say she was probably, well, had to be a teenager, and that she was still going to school. And it's an actual handwritten letter from Page. Interesting.
Is the camp located where the sawmill was, or was that further towards the road between the camp, the road to your
Have
camp?
you been up there?
Yes, I have several times. Yep.
Okay, well, you drive up that road going up the hill and get to camp. You passed it on your right was the sawmill.
Okay, thanks.
There's still some foundation piers there.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Brendan. Phil Williams says, can you please speak about the history of, oh, Phil, this might be just a general question or a general suggestion, but he's asking about us to speak about the history of the railroad. So I don't know if that's for you, for Jack, or for a suggestion in general.
I don't think Jack knows a lot about the history of the railroad. I think it sounds like there's a few people who think we should try to dig up and do a presentation about the railroad itself.
There's a
That's
lot of
right.
information. Charlie Fellin has a lot of maps and things on the railroad. And when they got started, there was a conglomerate of 3 different companies. I've read across them going in some of the literature that I passed that put it together. And I think that was about, like I said, 1898 thereabouts through, they made it until I think was 1929 thereabouts, depression, everything started changing and they went under.
Kate, do you want to ask a question of your dad?
Yeah, if I'm next, thanks. I'll get in line. I wanted to, before you bug out on this recording, Dad, there's some memories we had. I remember tagging along as a kid, and you'd have somebody invited up on the hill with us, and we'd watch the transformation from stress in modern day life to being relaxed by the fire at camp and having answers come to them left and right. But before we leave, I'm getting emotional because there's so many good people. But glad you're doing this. And if you could just share with me a couple of experiences. I'd like to hear one about your favorite fishing. One of them, I know there's many, and maybe one favorite hunting.
Well, you put me on the spot now.
I
You're
know.
probably,
I
you're
love
probably
that.
thinking about the story of Fish Creek and fishing and let's see, another member and I were in a canoe and my father-in-law and he had gone right off the end of, well, actually it's the Fish Road, and it turns into where it hits Fish Creek. There was used to be a beaver dam going right across. He'd gone across and he was fishing out there, and the current happened to be on the other side. He was fishing there, and we went upstream, hit another beaver dam, and we're coasting along. And he must have been doing pretty good because we started getting a little too close. And he said, "Get the hell out of here. This is my spot." He had about 4 or 5 nice, maybe 10-inch brookies, and he was happy as a lark. That's probably the trip that got laid out on the canoe. He was a happy individual. There was another story about him. I took him in. We haven't mentioned this yet, but he was from Allegany County, down a little town of Friendship, New York. An oil driller is what he did for a living. But we used to get down there when I started out in life, fishing and everything. We used to go over the Genesee River down in Wellsville. Well, anyway, he was always looking for an opportunity to fish and hopefully catch a new one, a new, better place than he went to. And he says, "I got to get up there and see what you got for opening day." Not realizing that it's in April and sometimes we don't have open water in April yet. Well, he kept insisting. I took him up, and we came back on the railroad, my old snow jet and a trailer. I have a trailer that I can haul on it, and he'd ride the back of the trailer. My son was with us. The 3 of us came up, and I was just going to take him for a snowmobile ride because that's all we had was snow. And I took him down the next morning after dumping him going in. He dumped once. Anyway, took him down, and I says, well, I took him out to an old spring hole that fed Alder Creek. And I said, well, if you want to fish, get your rod out. That's the only water we're going to see. He said, well, I won't see what he said. He wasn't a happy camper. I said, Herb, I've been trying to tell you that's all you're going to see up there. That was something else.
We've got Kelly Campbell. You want to ask a question? You're unmuted. But we're not hearing you, Kelly. If you want to put it in the chat, feel free. We're a little after 3, so we'll be starting to wrap this up. If anyone's got any last questions or comments, now's your time.
I think there was a slight tinge in your voice about appealing to new groups to get out there and hunt and fish and be conservationists. With 80% of us cruising around and recreating, we're out there. So thanks for promoting the interest in this presentation so that people really understand the natural flora and fauna of Tug Hill and the history and appreciation that goes behind taking a walk out there, and knowing the past is helping us move on to the future. Thank you, you guys. This is from Kate in Alaska. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you all. And I think we'll wrap it up on that note. Thank you very much, Kate, for joining us from Alaska, and everyone else who joined I hope you enjoyed it. Go to our YouTube channel to see this later. And a quick plug, if Jen hasn't put it in the chat, but we've got a CCC camp webinar coming up in the next couple of months. I'm not sure if we have a date nailed down for that yet, but you're on our email list if you signed up. So we will make sure, oh, she says May 21st. We'll make sure to get that out on an email to everyone. It is a Saturday afternoon because we're doing it hybrid. We're doing it in person in Rome at the Oneida County History Center, and there'll be an option to join online. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Take care.